If you've carried the weight of purity culture in your body, you know the quiet ache that no one seemed to see. You were told your worth was tied to your ability to stay pure. You learned to fear your own body, to shrink yourself so you wouldn't tempt someone else. You were made responsible for protecting the men around you from their own thoughts. And after years of trying so hard to be good, to follow every rule, you still felt like you were failing. Hear me clearly. You are not broken. What you're feeling is the echo of religious trauma. It doesn't always leave visible wounds, but it seeps into your nervous system, into your self-worth, into the way you see God. And by being here, you're already taking the first brave step. You're naming what happened to you for what it really was. Laura Anderson calls this the moment of rupture. It's when you begin to realize it wasn't you who failed. It was the system that failed you. It wasn't God who burdened you with shame. It was human teaching twisted into control. You might still be afraid to admit that out loud. Women are told in church to keep quiet, to not cause division, to just pray more and submit. But silence doesn't heal you. Naming the pain does. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34, verse 18. Even now, God has not turned away from you. The one who created you never intended you to carry this. So breathe. You don't have to fix everything today. You are safe to tell the truth here. Take a moment and reflect. What part of purity culture's teaching still echoes in your heart? How has it shaped the way you see yourself? In the next step, we'll talk about what happens after you name the pain. We'll begin gently rebuilding your identity apart from the lies you were taught. When you've lived under teachings that told you your worth was fragile, it can feel impossible to know who you really are. For so long, your identity may have been shaped by rules, by other people's expectations, by fear of being seen as unworthy. But hear me. You are more than the labels purity culture gave you. Your identity is not defined by what someone else said about your body, your past, or your value. It is not limited to the roles you were told to play. It is not trapped in shame or in silence. Rebuilding your identity begins with remembering the truth of who you already are. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139 says that every part of you was crafted with care. God did not create you to live as someone small, hidden, or diminished. So how do you begin to rebuild? Start by noticing the voice that still echoes in your mind. The voice that tells you you're not enough. Ask yourself gently, whose voice is that? Is it God's voice? Or is it the voice of someone who wanted to control you? You are allowed to set that voice down. You are allowed to step into a new way of seeing yourself, one rooted in grace instead of shame, one rooted in love instead of fear. Laura Anderson writes that healing starts when we separate our true selves from the false identity that religious trauma gave us. It is a process of becoming whole again, of peeling back what never belonged to us. So today, begin with one small step. Speak kindly to yourself. Tell yourself the truth that you are loved, that you are worthy, and that you belong. Take a breath and say it with me. I am not who they said I was. I am who God created me to be. Reflect for a moment. Who were you before shame told you to hide? Who might you become as you start to release it? Next, we'll talk about creating safe connections and boundaries, the next gentle step in your healing journey. When you've been hurt by the very people who claim to love you, it's easy to believe you're safer alone. You might wonder if you can ever trust anyone again. You might even wonder if you can trust yourself. But you were never meant to heal in isolation. Healing begins within you, yes, but it also grows in the safety of connection. The difference now is this. You get to choose who is safe. Safe people don't demand your silence. They don't pressure you to stay in pain for their comfort. Safe people listen without judgment. They honor your boundaries. They don't try to fix you. They simply walk with you as you heal. And boundaries are not walls to shut everyone out. They are gentle fences that protect what is sacred in you. Jesus himself showed us boundaries. He stepped away from the crowds to rest. He chose who to let close to his heart, He said no to those who wanted to control him. If even Christ could say, "This is where I end and you cannot cross," then so can you. Laura Anderson says that for survivors of religious trauma, learning boundaries is an act of reclaiming your body and your voice. It's saying, "I belong to God, not to the rules that tried to control me." So what does this look like for you? It might mean saying no to conversations that reopen wounds. It might mean limiting time with people who shame you. It might mean seeking out a therapist or a support group where you can speak freely without fear. Boundaries are not selfish. They are love in practice, love for yourself, and love for the relationships that can truly nurture you. Take a breath with me and say this: I am allowed to be safe. I am allowed to protect my heart. Think for a moment. Who in your life feels like a soft place to land? And where might you need more space to heal? Next, we'll talk about grieving and emotional integration, how to gently process the emotions you've carried for so long. Grief is not something we were taught to welcome in church. You were told to be strong, to pray harder, to push away your sadness because it made others uncomfortable. But grief is not weakness. Grief is love with nowhere to go. When you begin to name the pain purity culture caused, it's normal for old emotions to rise to the surface: sadness, anger, confusion, even relief. None of these feelings are wrong. They are simply the language of your heart telling the truth at last. And God is not afraid of your grief. Psalm 56 says that He keeps track of all your sorrows. He collects every tear in a bottle. He writes down every hurt. There is no emotion too heavy, no memory too painful for His presence to hold. Laura Anderson reminds us that for survivors of religious trauma, grieving is part of integration. It's how we gather the pieces of ourselves that were scattered. It's how we begin to feel whole again. So allow yourself to mourn what you lost. Maybe you lost trust in people you loved. Maybe you lost years of your life living in fear. Maybe you lost a sense of safety in your own skin. You are allowed to feel that loss. And as you grieve, know this: you are not grieving alone. Jesus Himself wept. He knows the weight of sorrow, and He does not turn away from yours. So what does integration mean? It's not about forgetting the past. It's about gently weaving those broken pieces into something new. It's saying, yes, this happened. Yes, it hurt me, but it no longer defines who I am becoming. Take a breath with me. You are not wrong for feeling what you feel. You are human. You are loved. Reflect for a moment. What do you need to grieve today? And can you trust that God is holding you even in this? Next, we'll talk about the final step: spiritual reconnection without fear, and how to approach God again with a heart free from shame. When purity culture distorts your view of God, it can feel impossible to trust Him again. Maybe you still feel like He's distant. Maybe you wonder if He was ever there at all. Maybe you were told that God only loved you when you were perfect, and that lie still whispers to you in quiet moments. But hear me. God has never stopped loving you. The same God who knit you together in the womb did not abandon you when humans misused His name. He never asked you to carry the shame that others placed on you. He never wanted you to believe you were anything less than His beloved. When you're ready, reconnecting with God doesn't have to be complicated. It begins with one simple truth: He is not who they said He was. Nadia Bolz-Weber says that shame is not holy, and holiness was never meant to be shameful. Purity culture told you that your worth depended on staying untainted. But God's love has never been about what you did or didn't do. It has always been about who you are, His child, fully loved. You don't have to return to the same faith practices that hurt you. You can talk to God in a whisper, in silence, in a simple breath. You can find Him in Scripture that brings comfort instead of fear. You can find Him in the kindness of safe people. You can find Him in the quiet moments where your heart finally feels free. Reconnection is not about going back. It's about moving forward with a new understanding of His grace. Take a breath and say this with me: I am not too far gone. I am not unworthy. God delights in me, even here, even now. Reflect gently. If you could meet God again, without fear or shame, what would you want Him to show you about His heart? You've walked through the steps of naming the pain, rebuilding your identity, creating safe boundaries, and allowing yourself to grieve. Now, you can begin to see that healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. You are not alone. You are loved. And your healing has already begun. Thank you for spending this time here. If this brought you comfort, take a moment to breathe and remind yourself, you are not alone, and your healing has already begun. If you'd like to help keep this space open for the next woman who needs it, you can support gently at ko-fi.com/spiritual healing coach. There's never any pressure. Just know that every bit of kindness helps this message reach someone who's still in silence. And if you want to keep walking this healing journey, I invite you to watch the next video on spiritual abuse recovery. I'll meet you there.